When we think about what makes or breaks a company, we usually think about the market or the competition, right? But what if I told you the single biggest threat or the greatest advantage comes from the inside? Today, we are diving deep into ethical culture, and I don't mean some fuzzy, feel-good concept. We're talking about a company's immune system, a critical defense that can either protect it from disaster or lead to its total collapse. Let's get into it. So, to really understand what happens when that immune system fails, we're going to start with a story, a case study of a company whose culture didn't just go bad, it became a catastrophic liability. The company was Valiant Pharmaceuticals, and yeah, that's how people described it. This wasn't just, a few bad apples. The entire environment, set right from the very top, was all about winning at any cost. It was a relentless push for aggressive shortcuts and hitting targets, no matter who got hurt. And when a company's culture gets that toxic, what do you think happens? The fallout is never far behind. A rotten culture doesn't stay contained. It always spills out and poisons everything it touches. So that rotten tone at the top, it led to some truly devastating real-world consequences. We're talking about massive price hikes on life-saving drugs. We saw the company using fraudulent accounting to trick investors, and worst of all, a shocking neglect for the well-being of actual patients. So it's no surprise that their stock price and their reputation just completely imploded. It's proof that a toxic culture isn't just a bummer to work in, it's a massive business risk. Okay, so how do you prevent a total meltdown like that? Well, you can't just react to problems. You have to build a proactive defense, what we're calling an ethical immune system. First off, let's just be clear on what we mean by culture. It's really simple. It's the collection of shared values, the unwritten rules that guide how everyone behaves. It's the answer to the simple question, so how do we actually do things around here? And this is where it gets powerful. When those unwritten rules are built on a solid foundation of integrity, the culture becomes like a healthy immune system. It doesn't just wait for a scandal to happen and then react. It's actively fighting off misconduct before it starts, and it encourages people to hold each other accountable, stopping small problems from turning into massive crises. And hey, this isn't just a nice theory. We can actually see this immune system working in the data. Check this out. Research shows that people working in companies with strong ethical cultures are 1.5 times more likely to report a problem when they see one. Why is that? It's because they feel safe. They trust that raising a red flag is the right thing to do, and they believe the company will actually listen and do something about it. Okay, so we get that culture is important, but how does it actually work? How does it shape our choices and our behavior every single day on the job? Well, it turns out it operates through a few really key levers. It really boils down to two totally different mindsets. On one side, you have a compliance-based culture. This one is all about rules. The main question people ask is what I'm doing illegal? The goal is just to do the bare minimum to avoid getting in trouble. But on the other side, you have a values-based culture. This is about principles. Here, the question changes to, is this the right thing to do? And that simple shift fosters a sense of personal responsibility that a rulebook could never, ever create. And that mindset gets spread throughout a company in 4 powerful ways. First, you've got the tone at the top, super important. If leaders are cutting corners, you better believe their teams will be. Second is socialization. When a new person joins, they learn the real rules from their coworkers, not from the employee handbook. Third is rewards. Think about it. If you promote the ruthless salesperson who hits their numbers by breaking the rules, what message does that send? And finally, all of this is held together by a speak-up climate, where people actually feel safe enough to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm not sure this is right, without fearing for their job. Which brings us to the big practical question. If you're a leader, how do you actually go about building a stronger, healthier culture? It's not magic, it's a deliberate process, and it requires using a combination of tools. So leaders have 2 main types of tools in their toolkit. First are substantive actions. These are the big, concrete moves, like firing a top performer who's also a toxic influence. Then you have symbolic actions. These are the gestures that send a message, like a CEO who starts every big meeting by talking about the company's values. Now here's the key. You absolutely need both. Talking about values is great, but if you don't back it up with real action, it's just corporate theater. So the blueprint for building this amazing culture has a few essential pillars. You have to set really clear standards and then actually train people on them. You have to align all your HR systems, who you hire, who you promote, how you pay people, with the values you say you have. You've got to create genuinely safe ways for people to report concerns. And probably the most important piece, you have to hold everyone accountable, no matter how senior they are or how much money they bring in. All right, so we've seen the disaster scenario, but what does it look like when a company gets this right? After all that work, what's the payoff? Let's look at a true masterclass in how a strong culture can become a company's greatest weapon, Costco. This is a famous quote from Costco's co-founder, Jim Sinegal, and it says it all. For him, culture wasn't just, a section in the business plan. It was the business plan. It was everything. And this isn't just a feel-good story about a nice company. The numbers are crystal clear. Companies that are truly driven by their values consistently outperform their competitors by a huge margin. We're talking around 50% on things like innovation and customer satisfaction. A strong ethical culture is a real, measurable competitive advantage. Costco's formula is almost beautifully simple. It's built on 4 basic principles. 1, obey the law. 2, take care of your customers. 3, take care of your employees. 4, respect your suppliers. That's it. But by living and breathing these simple values every single day, they have built an empire based on fierce loyalty from their staff and their shoppers, and it's led to decades of incredible success. And that brings us right to our final thought. After seeing the absolute train wreck at Valiant and the incredible success of Costco, the question we all have to ask about the places we work is this one. Is your culture a hidden risk, just ticking away like a time bomb? Or is it your single greatest, most powerful competitive advantage?